Hey there, you guys. This is Christian here, and I've been playing Spider-Man 2, and I'm a little late to first impressions, I think, but I definitely want to talk about this game. I think I was very, very impressed by what I saw from this game, and I think there's a lot of conversation about whether or not Spider-Man 2 does enough to elevate Spider-Man 2 from Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales. I think there's a lot of conversation as the way it looks graphically, the way it feels next gen, a whole lot of kind of controversy. And I feel like it is very, very unwarranted based off of what I've played. Obviously, I haven't played the entire game yet. These are just my quick impressions on what I've played so far. And spoiler, it's really, really good. Overall, I'm very, very impressed with what Team Insomniac did with this new entry into the Spider-Man franchise. I'm very impressed with their utilization of current gen hardware and overall how they use technology to amplify the gameplay experience. I'm gonna talk a lot about that stuff more in this video, so do me a favor and stick around. If you guys like this style of video, do me a favor and like it. Please consider subscribing if you guys like this stuff. Check out some of our other content. And without wasting any more time, let's get into the video. Alright, so Spider-Man 2 does a lot to amplify, again, the past experiences of Spider-Man back on PlayStation 4, as well as Spider-Man Miles Morales. This is, in every sense of the word, a very iterative sequel. So I feel like whenever you make a sequel, you have two different approaches to how you want to make this sequel. You can either be very iterative and build upon what you've already built the foundation of, or you can completely scratch it and start kind of anew, do things very different, things that people wouldn't really expect. And I feel like Spider-Man 2 does some things as that you wouldn't really expect, but overall it definitely sticks true to what we come to expect an Insomniac Spider-Man game to look and feel like. With that being said, the look and feel of Insomniac Spider-Man games are freaking amazing, and it is one of those things that can only really be experienced by a character like Spider-Man. Spider-Man has a very unique move set. He has a very unique way of traversing. He has a very unique way of approaching situations. It's what makes Spider-Man such an iconic character. And Insomniac has found ways to not only make Spider-Man feel like a superhero so unique like Spider-Man, things that again I wouldn't really have noticed except for the fact that they make it so pronounced. Things that I'm talking about is like the way he moves, the way he swings, a bunch of little mini animations that add to the experience. Things that I think a lot of developers would look at it and say that's not necessary, right? Because you're trying to get from point A to point B. You don't really need him to be doing flips, doing rolls, like swinging with his feet in the air, things like that that you wouldn't really expect or need. But every time you look at like a drawing or a comic book or a TV show of Spider-Man, those are the very things that you see. You see his feet up high above his head. You see him doing flips and you see him having fun as he's traversing through the city of New York City. And that's what really makes traversing this city so amazing and so again different than any other open world. There's not a single open world that you can get from point A to point B so fast, so smooth, and have so much fun doing it. Typically, whenever you have a big open world, you have the trouble of trying to find ways to fill it in ways that make traversing it not such a snores, not so boring. But typically once you hit like 30-40 hours of that open world, or sometimes even earlier than that depending on the open world and developer who made it, you get very, very bored and you really, really just want to start fast traveling everywhere. Now, Spider-Man 2, I don't know why anyone would honestly want to fast travel in this game. Just because, one, you get from point A to point B so fast. But also, traversing as Spider-Man is probably one of the biggest highlights of this game. The way he swings, how fast it is, things when they say like, oh, this is utilizing the power of the PS5. Spider-Man 2 is definitely utilizing the power of the PS5, not necessarily like just the graphics or anything like that, but the speeds at which he traverses, the animations, things like that that are so detailed that I couldn't imagine being done on the PS4 or honestly on any other home console right now. Yes, obviously something like a PC could run Spider-Man 2. We know that. We're not saying that the PS5 is the only device ever invented that can run Spider-Man 2, but it's the idea that PlayStation has with this PS5 with the SSD that allows for things like quicker movements, allows for things like this tech that makes developers' brain start to tick and start to click and start to say, hey, this is what I want to do, and now I'm capable of utilizing the technology to help, again, amplify the gameplay experience. Spider-Man 2 is by all means a popcorny flick. This is a blockbuster for blockbuster's sake. And this brings me back to, some of those Sam Raimi Spider-Man films that really, really nailed the essence of what Spider-Man is, from him swinging his wahoos, his yays, those little like cheers that he gives himself, the little quirks that he mentions, things like that that are just so like rooted in Insomniac Spider-Man game that there's no way they're not huge fans of not just the movies and shows but of the comic books as well, because their adaptation of the city of New York City, the way Spider-Man talks and communicates is just amazing, and I'm glad to see them push it further with their technology. I feel like Spider-Man back on the PlayStation 4 really nailed traversing. They really nailed things like who Spider-Man was and how how he engages in combat, how he engages in conversation, stuff like that. They already had figured out. The formula has been written in comic books, in movies, and they're really just utilizing that and trying to adapt it into a way that makes it a fun gameplay experience for us, for anyone who's a fan of Spider-Man. Even if you're not a fan of Spider-Man, this is one of those things that once you get the once you get the dual sense in your hands and you're moving and you feel like the haptic feedbacks of him whenever he punches people or when he swings, you can feel the wind brushing through the controller. It's one of those things that when you play something like Astro's Playroom and you see all the tech that's going on into the controller, and then the question is, okay, well, will devs actually use this? And it's great to see that Insomniac is not pulling any punches with the controller, and they're going above and beyond to again utilize all the tech that they have to help elevate this formula that they already have figured out since the original PlayStation 4 Spider-Man. And it makes the sequel not just necessary iterative, but also just like evolutionary a little bit in this game, right? It's one of those things that, again, it's easy to say that Spider-Man PS4 is a great game, it's an amazing game. I feel like the tech is the thing that really, really stood out to me. Not just, again, how fast he travels, but just overall how much it is able to help amplify the experience for the consumers, for the players, for the gamer, to help you really, really feel immersed into this world, make you feel like you're Spider-Man, even when you're doing something as simple as just roaming around the city of New York City.
Use.
Alright, a lot of that was just like the more movement and gameplay side of things, and I do want to talk a little bit more about what this game actually is from a more of a story perspective, because even though this game is Spider-Man PS4, it is very iterative. One thing that they do really, really well is they absolutely nail the story of Spider-Man. For me, as a Spidey fan, they really, really nailed his character, who he is in this world, and the way, again, everyone, all these citizens really engage with him, and they have this, like, trusting, loving nature where they don't just idolize him. Like, there's people who idolize Superman, or people who are, like, hate Batman or whatever. Spider-Man doesn't really get that same kind of love or attention that a lot of people would get in his position. Instead, it's more of kind of like, again, your friend, your neighborhood friend that's walking in the street and you need to borrow some sugar, except instead of borrowing sugar, you need your car pulled out of sand or stuff that's crazy that only he can do and he's only capable of. but because he's so homegrown within these communities that everyone kind of just feels like they know him. It's like if you live near a celebrity, right, and you kind of just see the celebrity at your local stores or grocery stores, you start to not see them so much as a celebrity. You see them as a part of the community, and that is what Spider-Man is to this in New York City, and that's what Insomniac really, really nailed. Now, I don't want to get too much into like the heavy story just because I want to try to avoid spoilers as much as possible. There's a lot of things going on within this story that I feel like you have to just experience for yourself. Obviously, there's a bunch of spoilers and people like IGN already mentioning tons of stuff about the story. I'm assuming hopefully maybe you avoided a lot of that stuff. If you haven't, that's good on you. I just won't be talking about it specifically in this video. The only thing that I will mention is his character, Peter Parker, is so tooth and nail spot on. Peter Parker, what you kind of love, right? The human behind the mask. If you're not a fan of Peter Parker and you're just more a fan of Spider-Man, I don't think this is really the game for you, or the story at least, just because again everything is so rooted in not just Spider-Man. Spider-Man is more of the clothes he wears, the outfit, the armor. That's Spider-Man. But Peter Parker is the scientist, he's the superhero, he is the person who has to balance getting a job, being Spider-Man, and, have a love life and all these things. And one of the things that I think is really, really cool is that they help, seasoned Peter Parker, right? Back in the PS4, he was already a more mature Spider-Man as far as like how long he's been doing it. He's been very experienced as Spider-Man already. And now you see him kind of still not really figure it out, because as he gets older and he tries to land down a serious career, and he's trying to get more serious with MJ, and not to mention the fact that he's also trying to mentor Miles Morales, not just as a Spider-Man but also as just a person, as a kid growing up who has to not only be a kid dealing with things like getting into college, having a girlfriend, having friends, etc., but also as someone who's going to have to juggle that life and his Spider-Man life. So again, I just think it's really, really impressive how they managed to like really, really nail Peter Parker's story. And that's what really gets me hooked into this. The gameplay is phenomenal. The gameplay is fantastic, but the story is so much of what I love from Spider-Man. And honestly, I don't think I really have seen a Spider-Man story this well since the PS4 Spider-Man. But if we're not counting that, then the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, and even those weren't as close to what you want Spider-Man in the comics to be. And this is 100% Peter Parker the way he needs to be done. Now, the other half of Spider-Man 2, because it's Spider-Man 2, two Spider-Mans, Miles Morales. Man, Miles' story is so fantastic, and I really, really love that. Even though Miles is the underling, he's the one who's like under the mentorship of Peter Parker, it definitely feels more like an equal relationship, as though they're both helping each other out, and there's things Miles Morales is good at, things Peter Parker's good at, things not just gameplay wise that they're good at, but like story wise. They both navigate differently, they both have different friends and different connections in different places, and understand different point of views of things. And Peter Parker never shies away of accepting Miles Morales' input on these situations. And I feel like Spider-Man 2 really, really did a good way of blending the world and the things that you got used to seeing in Spider-Man PS4, but then also blending what you got to experience in Miles Morales. So they don't really mention how neither of them are like their own separate games, their own separate worlds. They don't really talk about them too much, minus like the quick video that you watch in the very beginning. But besides that, it's really just these two characters and their worlds blended so perfectly, like they were always just one instead of two separate games. So it is really, really cool to see that they don't spend time re-explaining to the audience who they are, how they know each other, anything like that. It's just kind of assumed these are two Spider-Men, and one is the mentor, one is the, trying to learn from him, and they have their struggles, as human beings are gonna, have. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that Insomniac got right from the story from the gameplay, from utilizing their technology, stuff like that, that I feel like Insomniac has mastered Spider-Man so perfectly that I don't think any other media has really captured it, minus the comic books, obviously. Other than that, a lot of really cool things that I liked is throughout the accessibility like menu, there's a lot of really cool things that you can turn on and off that can help, curate your experience to a, benefit you better. If you're like someone who doesn't really like the combat so much, you can really like dumb it down. If you want to turn fall damage off or on, a lot of stuff that you can really do to kind of like tweak your Spidey experience to, make it more your own. So I think stuff like that helps alleviate any obstacles someone might have. Like if you're not a fan of the combat, because we can talk about the combat, but if you're not a fan of the combat, there's ways to make it easier for you. There's ways to make it harder, etc. If we're to talk about combat real quick, I really love it. I think Insomniac Spider-Man games really mastered what it is to fight a horde of enemies as, again, a Spider-Man would. It's not always perfect. It's very clumsy. The parrying is a little awkward. But overall, it is what I would expect. There's Spidey senses tingling every left and right. You can dodge, you can swing, you can throw enemies in the air. Stuff like that is really, really fun. It is very iterative on what Miles Morales and Spider-Man PS4 built, but it definitely feels smoother, funner, faster, all that stuff. I do like the way that Spider-Man Peter Parker and Spider-Man Miles Morales have different move sets and play differently, so it's not like you're just playing the same character and for story reasons they're switched. It is gameplay reasons that switch them as well, and that really plays well when they're separated, but also when they're together, because they have little combos that when they randomly see each other, they just combo together and it just works out really well. um, a lot of other things that I really like is the city of New York City is so well, like captured in here. From things like graffiti on the streets, people talking, coffee shops, the noise of the traffic, the wind blowing through everything. It is so like, again, captured perfectly, and I'm very excited to just explore more of this, see where the story goes. I'm hoping they kind of take more liberties with it, because that was the big fallout in Spider-Man PS4, was that they didn't go enough with what people wanted as far as making it a different, unique story. Miles Morales was the different, unique story, but then it was a lot shorter. So Spider-Man 2 hopefully finds a way to blend both of them, where they take risks where they can, and they make it a story that we can really, really remember so fondly. Because I think if you look back at the PS4 version of Spider-Man, there's a couple moments that you really, really remember, right? Like the opening with Kingpin, you remember the Sinister Six scenes, and you remember that, you definitely remember the ending. But there's a lot of like stuff in that I don't remember as vividly. But overall, again, Spider-Man 2 is a fantastic game. It is a true current gen experience. And what I really, really like is the fact that this is early-ish on in the PlayStation 5. So what Insomniac is working here is phenomenal. It is fantastic. It's great. But this definitely just showcases the potential that all the other studios can really use and really do with the PlayStation 5. Anyways, now I'm just ranting on unnecessarily, so I'm going to end the video here with that. Again, if you guys are checking out Spider-Man, if you guys haven't played it, if you guys are not interested, let me know down below. And with that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video.